We are honored to have here at the Newark Museum, one-on-one at the Newark Museum, Nell Painter. It says here artist.
Yes.
Could I give a little bit more background?
Former historian.
Oh yeah, just that. Writer, historian. You made a difference in the lives of so many. What's that little book you wrote, History of White People?
Yeah, the history of white people, just a little something.
Got a little attention?
It did. It's a New York Times bestseller.
Yes, yes. How you doing?
I am very good. Thank you so much. It's a pleasure to be here.
Well, it's an honor to have you here. And tell folks a little bit about this extraordinary transition that you are making from your work as a historian, as a writer, as someone who recognizes you for what you have been doing, and you're an artist.
That's right. But you know, you never can leave your former life behind. So it comes along with you. I thought I could. Going back to school, I went back to Mason Gross School of the Arts at Rutgers for a BFA in painting. And then I went to Rhode Island School of Design for an MFA in painting. And, but it all is mixing up together. It was a painful mixture. I won't say it was the easiest thing in the world to do, and if I knew how hard it was going to be, I'm not sure I would have done it, but I did it, and I'm glad I did.
Why?
Because I could, because I wanted to. I am the most fortunate person in the world, and I'm very grateful that I was able to follow two loves of my life. One is research and writing history, which I actually still do, and the other is making art with a sense of freedom. And the freedom of making art is like the freedom of fiction. It's like poetry, it's like fiction. So as a historian, when I went to the archive, I had to respect the archive. I could not pretend that there were things there that were uncomfortable or unfortunate or awkward. I had to respect the whole archive, and I had to footnote it. As an artist, I can go to an archive, whether it's a text archive or a visual archive, and if I don't like what's there, I can just ignore it. Or I can make it into what I want. I can take a piece of it and I can put something else that conceptually may not belong, put them together if they work visually. So it's a freedom that this historian did not have.
You know, what's so interesting as you talk about your work, and I want to thank our friends at State of the Arts for showing us what we're seeing right now. You're seeing you work. I've often thought, when someone is as talented, as accomplished as you are at what you are, how brave it is to say, I'm going to enter this new arena. I mean, I obviously would never compare myself with you, but I'm too insecure, like, to say, hey, I want to try this other thing. Like, this is what I do.
Yes, but it doesn't have to be what you do forever.
But my point is this: you had another inspiration.
Yes.
Your mom decided to do something pretty extraordinary at a later point in life. Talk about that.
My mother was 65. She retired, and she decided she wanted to write books. She saw me and my friends writing books and loving it. She said, I want to write a book. So she wrote one book. It's called The Unsung Heart of Black America. It's about middle-class black people in Oakland, California, which is my hometown. It took her 10 years to research and write it, and she did it. And then she started again, and she did another book, which took 10 years. It's a memoir. It's called I Hope I Look That Good When I'm That Old, because that's what everybody told her, and that's what they're telling me now.
Yeah.
And she was working on a website of vital old people when she died.
I'm sorry.
Yeah.
But this piece behind you, over your right shoulder.
Yes.
I mentioned it in the previous segment with Jeremy. Dr. Price, Clem Price.
Yes.
What does that mean to you? What does he mean to you?
Oh my gosh. How much time do we have?
Your connection to Clem and Mary Sue Sweeney Price, who helped make this place, the Newark Museum, what it is today, the previous CEO here, the executive director, Clem's wife.
That's right.
Talk about him, talk about them.
They were friends for a long time. My husband and I lived in Princeton forever. And after spending time in Paris and in Berlin, we said, oh, we want to move to the city. What's our city in New Jersey? Newark. How do we do it? We don't know. So we asked Mary Sue and Clem actually took us by the hand, almost literally.
That's what he would do.
And drove us around, and then we ended our drive in Branchbrook Park,
Yeah.
and he said, this is your neighborhood. And we said, okay, and it is.
Yeah.
So that's just one way. But over the years, Clem has been, for me, for you, for so many of us, a resource, a loving, generous resource, and a spokesperson for our city, and that is not to be taken for granted. So he was just a wonderful public and private person in our lives.
We'll be talking more about Clem Price throughout this series, one-on-one at the Newark Museum. Let me ask you a little bit more about your artwork.
Yes.
We're going to put up another piece of yours. I want to have you talk about it.
This is a digital collage that is based on a drawing that I made that is inspired by a painting by an artist, a 20th century artist named Robert Motherwell. And he spent his summers in Provincetown. So I made a series of drawings by hand called Motherwell in Provincetown. And then from those drawings, I put them through the computer and digitized them, and then made a series, and I did that while I was in Dedham, Massachusetts. So that's called Motherwell in Dedham. And then there's also a series called Motherwell in the Adirondacks, which I made in the Adirondacks. So what I do is go back and forth between the manual, between drawing and painting by hand, and then the digital of recomposing, recoloring, reconfiguring my own drawings and paintings digitally. So I work manually and digitally.
Anyone else with you when you do it? Is it just you?
Just me.
Just you.
Yeah, and I tend to work by myself. I tend to work in silence as well. Not always, but I tend to work in silence. Yeah.
Did you write in silence?
Yes.
Did you write by yourself?
Yes. I'm an only child, so I don't have, like my husband, I don't have the ability to shut off things around me. So if there's something in my ear, usually I'll listen. This is not always the case. One of the things I learned in art school from the artists around me who did listen to music is that I can work by hand with music, or I listen to German radio, and I can do that. But normally when I'm concentrating, I do it in silence.
Well, I want to ask you this. Because of this book, this New York Times bestseller, History of White People, I would be remiss. I want to ask you this selfishly, and I am confident there's great value in your response. Where do you feel we are in 2016? I have to do it. Are we anywhere close to where we need to be in terms of the relationship between blacks and whites?
The quick answer is no. I don't know if we ever will be, but I will say one thing, and this is personal, I speak only for myself, that one of the gifts of this horrible campaign is...
you're talking the presidential campaign?
Yeah.
That's the only horrible one I can think of.
Yeah, is that so many non-black Americans are seeing the side of American culture that I live in. So they are beginning to say, oh, George Wallace wasn't an accident.
1968.
1968. But we can look at various places along the line, and there always has been this part of American society which is really kind of hateful. And it's been very easy for non-black Americans to ignore that. And this year, it is not so easy.
We are honored that you have joined us here
Thank you.
at the museum, Newark Museum, and humbled that you join us, and we thank you very much for your time. Nell Painter is an artist, a historian, an academic, a writer, and a very special person. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
We'll be right back from the Newark Museum right after this. Thanks, Nell.
One-on-One with Steve Adubato has been a production of the CAUCUS Educational Corporation, celebrating over 25 years of broadcast excellence. And by the Newark Museum, in cooperation with NJTV and 13 for WNET. Funding for this special edition of One-on-One with Steve Adubato at Newark Museum has been provided by Bank of America, PSE&G, Cone Resnick, University Hospital, Newark, New Jersey, Johnson & Johnson, Prudential Financial's Global Communications Department, and by the North Ward Center. Transportation provided by Airbrook Limousine, serving the metropolitan New York, New Jersey area.